right, everybody, I'm Chris, and we're going to talk about some stuff. So let's do that. All right. Boom. All right, we're going to head over to our Classic Warrior Horses site. All right, well, we'll just ignore those. It's fun. Okay, we'll hide them with that face. So sorry, David. All right, so let's talk about what the horses are up to. So the horses are always trying to look into new things and to work on stuff. And so we're going to take a look at R&D. They've got a new R&D site where they're doing their research and development. And here's where they're going to gather up all the different ideas for how things are working. They're going to gather up, different initiatives, and so they can kind of view what's happening. They can comment. They can work together on them. And that sounds like a great idea. And they hand it to someone who that's not their job. They have another job. But, it seemed fine at first because they were very excited about it. All right, so what they said was just email me your new research initiative. That sounds good. And then they create a little page for it. Then link it back, and then they can check it out. And that seems okay at first, right? But things have picked up, and now we're talking 2 to 3 a week, and we're looking at more of these. And it's gotten a little crazy. We're trying to manage all that. And so now we're going to talk about what could we do to make that better, right? So that's a common scenario, right? Something starts small, gets a little bigger, but you still don't have funding or budget to do anything much beyond the out of the box, right? So let's see. So in this case, right, our lovely manager of the R&D and M site, what they're doing is when they receive an email, they're putting things in a list because, they thought a few things through. So they've got a list here. They put them in this list, and that's cool. And they have the details, the key details. They're having them email them, right? And they're hoping that maybe they'll make this a form that they can later have, individuals fill out and so on. And once they, put these items in here and they create a page, right? They've got this template here. So they create a page, research initiative, and then they fill out some stuff. For instance, here is page. They've just linked. And so they've created a page for that research initiative. Right. Oh, this is lovely. So excited about this. All right. So that's okay, right? But they've got to copy this information over. It doesn't look great, right? And they've got to do this kind of manually. And as things ramp up, right, there's a lot of chance that they can make mistakes. Things aren't quite right. Things are certainly not standard as they work through this. For instance, they decide to add a new category. They got to go back through all the other research initiatives, add it. You can see it's a bit of an issue, right? So traditionally, you might solve this, right? If you're coming from a development background, you might do this as SPFX. Right. For instance, you might create a single page, you put SPFX web part on it, and maybe you've got a query string that points to, a list item, and then you're displaying that list item however you want. And that works pretty well. There are some big limitations, drawbacks with that, right? For one, this person doesn't have any funding, right? So they don't have time to spin up development, even if it's the easiest SPFX web part in the world, right? There's deployment, there's other things they've got to go through approvals. It's a big hassle just to get that going sometimes, right? It could be the right call. But what if they also want to take advantage of individual pages? So they want page comments, right? They want to be able to let the authors, they want the key information, but they want to let them add any other web parts they want and so on. So a single page template, which is using query strings, isn't a great model for that either, right? So what can we do? Well, in this case, we want to look at how we can make this information look better. Now, one of the things you might do, and this is a fine thing sometimes, you've got a small amount of information, is to use page properties, right? So if you've seen this web part, you can add additional columns to your page, site pages library, and you can show them here, right? I can show the title, and that's cool. And you can add a whole bunch of these, and that would be a standardized way to do it. And you could have the metadata instead on the list. You could have it on the page, and that's one way, but you don't really get a lot of control over that. And this is a formatting demo, so that's not the solution. All right, so let's get rid of that. So what if we wanted to go a little further, right? We want to make this a little better. So we've gone back to our initiative site. Right, and the first thing I want to solve is navigation, right? So we've got this, so we have this navigational view, which is cool. It just gives us buttons so that we can click on those links. So if we go back to the home page, let's just integrate that briefly. All right, so we can come in here and whatever this things you can do here, we don't care about that anymore. And instead, we're going to add the list, and we'll pick our initiatives list, and then we edit that. This is where you can see we have the list, and we can pick our view. And so in this case, we're going to pick navigation. And we're going to hide all these extra junk we don't want right here. I'll move you guys over here. All right, and let's apply that. And so that's cool. So now we've got this little thing here, and because I've got weird section issues, it's a list web part issue. I'm just going to turn off the section background shading so it looks good. All right, so now we've got this navigation that's going to be dynamic. Whenever we create an item in that list, right, we can click this, and it's going to go to whatever site we pointed at. So we're solving some things with formatting. All right, but let's go a little further. So if we go back to our list, which was, let's go to resources initiatives. We have this idea of like, what if we want to display this a little better? And we have this idea of a stacked view. So this is just some of those details. Right now, they're all stacked on top of each other, which doesn't look great. But it's a little more of the way we want to display this, right? And it'd be great if we display that on the page. So if we go to a page, say we're on our horse clause page, right? We're just going to remove this whole thing, or where's that button? I don't know. Let's just add a new one. There we go. We add our list here, and then we go to initiatives, and we're going to grab our view, right? And we're going to say that stacked view, just as before. And then we're going to, we'll hide these things just to make it prettier, and wow, and get out of here. And we apply. Well, that's not great, right? We still have multiple items here. And in their infinite wisdom, the dynamic filtering is only for lists or libraries instead of being able to pull from query strings and some other stuff we might be able to do. So how do we do that, right? We could create an individual view for every item. And then we would be very, very sad that we were having to do that and maintain that. And that would just, it's not a good plan. Don't do that, okay? Well, what about this thing? What is this folder thing? Well, let's check that out. This is where we're really looking at it. This is the folder pattern. And so if we come back here, the idea here is if we go back, let's just go to our all items view. It's a little easier. If we go to our list settings, we're going to take advantage of folders. You're familiar with folders in document libraries where they're on by default, but you can do them in list as well. So if we go to our advanced settings and we just come down here and we say make new folder command available, we're going to say yes. And we're going to hit OK. And now we go back. And the idea here is, well, not on navigation. Let's go back to our all items. We could create folders, right? So let's create a folder. And we're going to call this one initiative for one. And there's a reason for that name. I'll show you. So I'm going to just create that. And then I created a folder, and I can literally just grab this guy and stick it in the folder, right? So now I've got this in a folder. There's horse clause, and we could go back and we got another folder and so on. But on our page here, now we can actually type a folder, right? Initiative 2, 3, 4. Was that what it was? 1, maybe? Let's try that. Get out of here. Let's apply. There we go. Look at that. So now we can actually use a folder to create a dynamic filter for us. All right. So now we're pulling back exactly the item we want here. Right. And we can go a little crazy. We can get rid of this name, right? We can just say, details or something, right? And that looks pretty good, right? Now we're pulling this in. All right. So this works pretty well, right? So now we're just pulling from a single folder, and that's great. And we're getting a little further, right? But that's still a hassle, right? The idea that I've got to create a folder, I've got to stick in there, I've still got to create the page, and then I've got to create a web part, and I've got to point it to the folder. I mean, again, I've got a little more dynamic here, but why don't we take this a little further, right? So why don't we make a way to have this folder stuff be automatic? So let's look at that. So we're going to go to integrate, we're going to go to Power Automate, and we're going to create a flow. And I'm just going to hit show more so I can get the template I want, which I just want when a new item is added. All right, this is the idea that whenever a new item is added to this list, I want to run my flow. All right, so we'll continue here. And we get a nice little starter. It's pointed at our list. Wow. And that's exciting. Now, the first thing we need to check, though, is we've got to check our trigger condition. So right now, we can create folders and everything else, but we don't want to run this when you create a folder because then we'd be creating a folder for a folder. The whole idea is we're going to run this flow to create a folder for the list item and move the list item into that folder. So in order to do that, we go up here and we go to settings, and we've got this lovely trigger conditions here. And I'm just going to add one here, and I'm just going to copy and paste. And all we're going to do is add equals, and we're just saying if it's a folder, don't run it, right? So pretty straightforward. So we're only running this flow when it's not a folder. So it's just a standard list item. So hit OK. So now what we want to do is we want to create a variable, right? So we're going to say edit variable. There it is. And we're going to call this guy folder name. All right. And we're just going to generate. We just want standardized folder names. It makes things a lot easier to work with. So we're going to make this a string, and we're going to use a little formula here. I'm going to do an expression. And in this case, I want to concat. Right. You guys are going to watch me type an expression here. This is going to work out. Initiative dash, right? And then we want to put, just like we did before, we want to format that ID, right? So we're going to say format number here. And the way the format number works is we're going to take an item and then we're going to say pad it basically with zeros. So we're going to put 5 zeros in there. We're going to pad it. Now we need our dynamic item here. So we'll go to dynamic content, and we're just going to scroll down till we find ID. Boom. There we go. Now we've got a little formula that's going to build. And if we can see it a little better, basically we're going to format. We're going to say initiative dash and then, up to 5 zeros with our ID in there. And that just kind of gives us a standardized folder name, which is exciting. I do recommend changing these titles, but I'm not going to terms of speed here, but let's keep going. So now we want to create a folder, right? So let's do that. So we're going to do that using this. So we're going to say folder, and we got create new folder. Then we pick our site right there. And then we're going to pick our list, of course, which is that same list. Oh, you can do it. There we go, initiatives. And then our folder path, well, that's our folder name. There we go. So we're creating a nice folder there. And then we want to move our item to the folder. Now, that's a little less straightforward, of course. And in that case, we're going to use a SharePoint HTTP call. SharePoint HTTP. And there it is. Now, this is an HTTP call, but it is not a premium connector because it goes to SharePoint. So, yay. All right, and we're going to click this. And we're going to go R, D, and M. And we're going to say this method is actually a post. And then let's copy some stuff because I don't want to type all that out here. So let's grab this. And let's paste that sucker in there. Ooh, I'm going to zoom this at all. There we go. I'll make it a little easier. Okay. And so the idea is here, I'm going to get by server relative URL. I've got it to my list, initiatives, instead of item ID, right? I actually need to replace that with dynamic. So let's do that, blah, 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 blah. And then our dynamic content, we want ID, but we don't want the one from the create new folder. We want it from when the new item is created, that ID. And then we want to move it to our folder name here. So let's back over to that, insert our dynamic content, which was just the folder name. And then once again, we need the item ID. All right. There we go. And let's grab that ID. Boom. So now we go. Now we're going to be moving the item into the folder. So now we created the folder and we're going to move the item into the folder. And that is very, very exciting. Okay, so let's see if that works. We're just going to do a quick test on that one. After we save, of course. Now we'll test. All right, I'm going to save manually so we don't have to wait the up to 5 minutes. There we go. And now we just go over to our list. And let's just create a new item. All right, we'll just call it super research. I don't know. Wow. Perfect. All right, we'll give it a category just for funsies, right? And duration is 6 weeks. And we'll pick a start date. None of these are required, but I just feel like filling out and it's a good time. All right, and we'll save that. All right, so now we've got a new entry here. And if we check our flow, we cross our fingers, we hope, thoughts and prayers and all that. And there we go, it has run. And so now if we go back, we should see, maybe I'll just refresh to be certain. We have initiative 4. And if we click that up, we have our super research was automatically moved in there. And that's very cool. And so then what we can do here is we can actually turn off, like if we don't like this folder view, all right, if you haven't seen this before, you can go to edit current view. You come down here to folders. And even though they are folders and everything's in folders, you can show them without folders. So it will flatten everything. So it looks just like a standard list and nobody even needs to know you've got those ugly folder names back there. But now you've created those as flow. So now you've got a way to point to each individual item on a page. So let's go a little bit further because, hey, I still got a couple minutes. So that's exciting. So if we go back to our flow, right, let's go further, right? So we have this idea that we want it on a page. We know that. So let's do that. Let's put it on a page. So in order to do that, we need to take our template first. Let's go to our template and let's edit this template. So we're going to edit our page template and let's set it up as an actual template we want to use. We'll just get rid of whatever that was, right? So we're saying a basic page is going to have a list. It's going to be the initiatives list. And we know we want it to point to, initiatives, and we want to go to the stacked view and we want the folder. We're just going to put in here initiative, what was that? 004, right? There we go. Let's apply that, see if that worked. Okay. Yep. And then we get rid of these guys just so we have, there we go. So here is our exciting template, right? And what we want to do here is we're just going to leave this as is for a minute. Well, actually, let's go to the page template before I forget. Okay. So we saved our page templates. Now we've got a template and we know that it's at our research.aspx in our templates folder. So if we go back to our flow, and all I did, by the way, in case you weren't familiar, is I just created a page and there's an option instead of save as draft to save as template. That's the only thing I did there. It's not strictly required, but I find it is easier to do that. So let's go add a new step. And in this case, now we need to create a copy of that template. So this is going to be another one of those posts. So HTTP, and we go HTTP request to SharePoint. And of course, we're going to pick our site. Where are you? Ooh, there you are. That's exciting. And this is another post because we're doing something here. And let's go ahead and again grab our URL we're going to replace. So I don't fat finger it. Boom. Okay, so what we're doing is we're getting the file by server relative URL, templates, research ASPX, because that is the name of our page, right? And then we're going to copy it to our site pages. And in this case, we're going to use that folder name once again here, right? So we're going to say, boom, folder name. So there we go. So now we've just gone through and we've created a copy. So I'm going to rename that just for, I don't lose my mind. Create copy of template. Okay, there we go. So that's cool. Now we created the copy of the template. And in order to work with that, now we need to get details about that, right? So now we actually have to get metadata about that. So let's see, get file metadata. And in this case, we're going to pick the, what is it? The R&D side. Perfect. Okay, and our file identity or file path, which one did I pick? Not file metadata. Is that right? I don't know. This one's different. Let's see, did I have the right step here? Let me add one more step here. I'm going to try that one more time because this part's fun. Okay, let's make sure I picked the right metadata one. I think I did, but I'm going to double check before we try and run this thing. All right, so we want to get the file metadata using path. That's the one we want. Perfect. Okay, so get rid of that. Get out of here, you guy. You don't need you. Boom. All right. Okay, so that's why it looked different. All right, so now we need to pick our site correctly. So in this case, what we're doing is we're going to the page we just created, and we're just doing this so we can get the nice ID from it, right? So we're going to say our file path in this case, we're just going to type it as site pages, right, / and then our dynamic content is the folder name. All right, then we're going to type .aspx. There we go. There, we're going to get our page metadata. And then we've got to check it out since we're going to edit the page, right? So now we're going to do another HTTP action. Gotta love those. They're good times. All right, and so in this case, we're going to pick our site one more time. And our method is going to be post again. And once again, let's copy this guy from over here, our API endpoint. Boom, it's just our page item ID right here. We're going to backspace over that so we can insert it. And it's going to go to dynamic content. And we got file metadata using path. We got that item ID. Boom, we're going to check out that page. That's all there is to checking it out. And now we're going to update the page. Now, this one's a little crazy. So let's see what we can do here. Now, this is an HTTP post. Once again, and we'll get it set up, and then I'll show you what we're going to do here. So once again, pick our site. Ooh, pick the site. There it is. And our method is once again post, because we're doing stuff. And the URL is this save page as draft endpoint right here. And let's once again, before we forget, let's take up the dynamic piece, insert that item ID. Okay, so now we want to save page as draft. But in order to do that, we need the actual content of that page, right? So good news, I got a trick for you. We're going to hit F12 in our browser, or bring up our dev tools, whatever you've got that configured for, right? And we're going to switch to the network tab. I'm in Edge, but this works in Chrome and Firefox and all these other things. I'm going to just go to network. I'm going to record the traffic. I'm just only interested in these fetch requests for now. Let's edit the page, right? Just so I can hit save page as template. Let's see. Wait, let's edit the page one more time and try. Oh, did I actually turn it off? Yeah, you actually do need to record it. Okay, so save page template. You see we have this save pages draft call right here. This payload right here, we didn't really change it. We just hit view source so we can read it this way. Sometimes you'll have to come here and expand it if it's really big, depending on how much stuff you put on your page. Literally copy this. I'm just going to copy that, head back to your flow, and in the body, that's your body. So paste that. All right, and now what we're going to do is we're just going to go through and find a couple things, right? So we have this idea of our title was research initiative, right? That's what we set it up. How about instead of that, we backspace and we say, where's our dynamic content? Dynamic content, in this case, we want the title, right? So let's get the title from when a new item is. So we're going to name our page right there as title. And then what we want to come down to is we want to find here is initiative 004. Make sure that's the right one. The folder path. Here's the folder path right here. So we want to change our folder path so we can dynamically insert that as well. And we'll get rid of that guy. Insert our folder name. And then I think there's one other spot we have to put it as well. And that would be selected folder key, which is right here. Get out of here with that. Okay. Make sure I'm doing the right one. Yep, select a folder key, press 2F, boom. backspace over that guy, and then once again, we're going to folder name. Okay. So now what we're really doing here is we're taking the whole page contents, right? And we're taking the properties that we configured, and we're just dynamically swapping in a couple things that we just did. And then we're going to save that page as draft. All right. And then the last thing we need to do is we need to publish that page that we just did. So one more HTTP action and we should be done. Let's see. We have one more. SharePoint number 4. Awesome. Now let's grab our site one more time. And it is again a post. And our URI is publish. In this case, so very similar. I'll take our page item ID back out. Time, and then we're going to grab item ID. Okay. Now, assuming I typed all that, let's see what happens, shall we? Oh, all right. Sorry. One last step. And that last step is to update the actual item, right? So we need to update the item. Update item. And in this case, we want to grab that site one more time. Remember when I said one more time earlier and I lied to you? That was nice of me. All right. So we go to our initiatives and our ID is that original ID from way back up top. I'm so glad your fingers are crossed. Thank you. All right, there we go. And we'll just take the title because all required fields for some reason have to be mapped in, and we love that so much. All right, we need a title. And in this case, we just want to update that page URL, right? Because we just created that dynamically. So we know that the page is in site pages. Actually, we're going to put it on our site, right? Site / RDM / what was it? Site pages / folder name .aspx, right? So that's what we're doing. Now we could take this further. We could add permissions, individual permissions to the pages and all that stuff, and then send emails like your page is ready, and we can do all that kind of stuff. If we wanted, we could bring that form stuff in through Microsoft Forms. In fact, we've got a less than 5-minute demo on the YouTube channel that'll show you how to take Microsoft Forms and put those in the SharePoint list. So you could have all this kind of wrapped up together. So let's save, and again, cross those fingers. Okay. So now we're going to test it. Once again, manually test it. All right. And now let's see. Come on now. We're going to create a new item. And we're going to call this Hope. The researching Hope. Did it work? There we go. We'll give it some categories just for fun. Oats and style and methodology. Great. And duration, we're going to say is 78 years. And the start date is, we'll say tomorrow. Or today. It's today. We're great. And we don't need to know that. And our budget is going to be 78 million. Yeah, it's a lot. Hope costs quite a bit. Okay, so now we're going to run that, and let's see what happens with our flow here. Are we going to fail? Are we going to do it? Let's see. So we've gone through. Flow ran successfully. Well, that's exciting. Let's see. So if we come back here, now we have Hope. We can see that we've got a link right here to the page. All right, we click that. It actually takes us to a page, research initiative. We forgot to update the title, but we can do that as well. But the idea is we just created a page. We dynamically, set it up. We've got our navigation set up off of view formatting. We've got an individual format here. We don't have to have a view for each individual item. People then can control this page. They can add whatever web parts they want, but you still have standardized display. And because you've got all the power formatting, you can make this look however you want. You can go really elaborate depending on the number of columns you have. You can integrate those power apps. We've done that as well. It's a pretty cool pattern. And you can see if we go back home, we already have our new initiatives here in our navigation and things to sort of show up. And we could order this maybe by recent initiatives and just limit that to 5 or 10 and so on. So now the person that was struggling to do, 2 or 3 of these a week is just setting all this up and it's automated and they're good to go and then get back to their regular job. Yay! All right. And just to wrap up here, here's a couple of resources for you. So please check out our full documentation. We've got lots and lots of samples on this and more. We've got samples on how to use the flow and other pieces as well, but there's also some tools available too. And that's about it for me. Thanks.
Awesome, Chris. Yep, everybody's excited, right? Even the horses. So very, very cool.